Um, the story. Well, about the story itself. The story is set in Washington State. It starts out in, an area that's familiar around here, Ruston Way, Theophos Waterway, which is actually in the Tacoma area. Catherine O'Rourke belongs to the Pierce County Sheriff's Department. There's mention of, Allen Moore Medical Center and places that are pretty familiar to the south, Puget Sound, Pierce County area. I believe that, you have to, and I've traveled and I've been to numerous places and things like that, but, I'm most familiar, obviously, with where I grew up. So I wanted to be able to really bring some rich textures, to the story by really being close knit with setting the story in a place that I was familiar with. The overlying reach of the story, there's a lot of, it's fast paced and there's a lot of action. There's some gory moments and things like that. But for me, the overall message of the story is, how the decision of a few can affect the destiny of many. And, I grew up in the church culture, you know what I mean? And, my parents gave me a very strong, spiritual background. But I saw a lot of things, I saw a lot of things that affect, people generationally, when the church moves from, a more spiritual thing to a more, cliquish kind of a situation. And, so the story, Conrad and Evelyn, I won't give anything away, but, they're very prominent individuals, and some events take place, within the context, that kind of originate in the, church setting years before the story takes place. And it really caused, things to boil over in a very ugly way. And so not only is this applicable to, obviously the church experience, but it's applicable to, to any type of, individual or people that's in, a leadership position. I think that there's this epidemic, and it's like a cancer. Stuff happens in public situations and things like that, and people always want to sweep it under the rug. And in my experience, the church itself is really, really, and not in all cases at all, but in a lot of cases, it's really bad about, someone makes a mistake and everybody picks up their stones, and the person has nowhere to go, nowhere they can really deal with it and feel comfortable about it. When, you have someone who's been used to dealing with the church culture all their life, and the church is a great source for them, but, once in many cases, once a mistake is exposed, they're just outcast. And what happens socially is, what I observed, is that it causes people to really look inside themselves. It causes them to isolate, and it causes them to feel like they cannot reach out. And so when it builds this pressure cooker, and some really bad things can come from that. And so I brought that element into my writing in The Whisper of Serpents to hopefully draw the picture that, there should be a degree of transparency, all the way across the board. I mean, in our homes, in our family situations and things like that. That way, everybody stays pretty much on an even keel, because I feel like I can express myself, or, I can fall off the tightrope every now and again. And while I'm down on the ground, you're not going to kick me, So the Whisper of Serpents, aside from the obvious, the action and things like that, the underlying for me, I'm sure many people get many different things out of it, but the underlying thing for me was, this is what is a potential reality that can happen when we, as a society, as friends, as a culture, fail to properly heal one another, on the heels of a mistake, on the heels of a mistake, or even creating the environment where people don't feel like they can come and express that they have made a mistake. So, I close myself in because I don't want to be vilified. I don't want to be, cast out. And next thing you know, woo, the explosion happens. So that, I think that's the driving thing for me, behind it. But it came out, it came out very interesting, the way that the novel, wrote out. So,